Welcome to episode 38 of the Coast AFL Podcast with Nick and Blaze. This week, we will talk about and go through the entire list of the 2024 draftees. We will also look at the AFLW Preliminary Finals, preview the 2024 AFLW Grand Final, and also take a look at a couple of Supplementary Selection Period signings that have happened very, very recently. And by that, I mean within the past 24 hours, pretty much. So let's jump straight into it. How are you doing, Mr. Sarek?
Not too bad, not too bad. Yeah, pretty chill week for me. As I said, just looking at the draft news. Went to the cricket as well. First day, Australia versus India. Saw 17 wickets fall. It was pretty exciting. But unfortunately, yeah, as I said, it doesn't look like Australia is doing too well. So, but we'll keep the Australia analysis for another podcast. Unfortunately, I don't think Blazy could help me out too much.
I mean, I like the cricket,
ones.
but I don't watch it all that often.
Nah, well, I mean, to be fair, most people do. Most people, like, most games of cricket, in other countries, people only watch the highlights and things, so it's very hard to keep track.
It's one of those sports where, like, you don't have to consistently be watching it to know what's going on. Because the rules for it are fairly simple and self-explanatory.
Yeah, and as long as you don't mind dealing with a few Australia bogans, it is great because I caught up with a mate and we did chat a bit about the football. So might be a few opinions of his. I got a few takes of draft picks and all that from him. So because I don't really know all that much. So happy to come in this week and give you all the lowdown.
Excellent. For me, mine's mostly just been work. I'm still streaming for November. This is the last week, just for note. This upcoming Saturday, I will be shaving it off live on stream as it's the final day of November. But yeah, like for the week just gone, I was out and about Saturday, so I didn't even get to watch the AFLW finals. Thankfully, I have you to cover that. And yeah, otherwise it's just been streaming, keeping busy, lots of work. Paying bills, unfortunately. You know how it is.
So is the mustache any risk of coming back any non-November months?
Probably not in during the summer. I think I'm going to leave it off over the summer, and then I might bring it back during the colder months. But
yeah,
we'll see. We'll see how we go.
We'll see.
I don't mind how it looks at the moment. It is just probably a little bit longer than at least like
exactly.
The front, probably like
a month, Yeah, I feel you.
Because I'm not opposed to keeping it. Like I actually quite like how it looks, but it's also just annoying at the same time. And I'm getting sick of wearing beard nets at work. So
yeah, and as you can see, like I don't exactly keep 100% on my upkeep. I've got the little sides. Sorry, fam, for watching on YouTube. I don't 100% spend the time to polish myself up too much before doing these. So
neither do I.
Week by week.
Last time I shaved was like Thursday. So
yeah,
my chin has got a little bit on it. Anyway, sorry. Enough about us. Let's jump into the meat of it. So we are going to run through pretty much the entire list of the draftees, any rookie draft signings as well. Mostly they're players that were relisted after being delisted. There are a couple of preseason signings as well. I think they're also just relisted players for the most part. And we'll also touch on the brief couple of announcements from the Supplemental Selection Period, which is currently going on. I believe it's like for a week or two. I can't remember. But there's already been a couple of announcements as to who's definitely signed on. There's a couple that has been announced as to who will be training and trialing at other clubs. So we'll touch on those as well. But let's get into it. We just going down team by team, since that's...
we'll start at Adelaide. Why not? You're going down the article.
And just for note, we're not going to specifically highlight every single player. We're mostly going to talk about the bigger draft picks, so the top 25. Because they're usually the ones that get the most attention, so we figure we should do our due diligence. But otherwise, let's go right in. Speaking of, we actually start off with pick 4. for the Adelaide Crows, being Sid Draper.
Yep. Not too much surprise here. The best Adelaide player in the draft goes to the first Adelaide pick, number 4, and it also fits their need. Adelaide could use a bit of midfield depth, and yeah, Sid Draper is just a fast mid-sized midfielder. Yeah.
182 centimeters, so he's the perfect height for a good strong-bodied midfielder.
Yep. Yeah, as I said, yeah, oh, sorry.
You good?
Yeah, no, hang on. I need to get this back up. Yeah, it's not really too much to say about him. Did well in the lower levels, first round draft pick. But as I said, in terms of Adelaide, their midfield's getting older. They'll probably be looking to replace a few in the upcoming years, whether that be Matt Crouch due to injury, or, maybe they shift Laird back, or even, the versatility for Dawson, who had, I would still say, a middling year in the midfield. Stats-wise, he was okay. I just felt that was a bit of his a ball use, a lot of dead handball chains. Adelaide's midfield didn't really fire all as much as they'd like to. Okay. So having such a quality high-round draft pick in a year where midfields are pretty stacked.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like the first, I think it was 9 picks were midfielders, I think. Taru being the first with pick 10. So, yeah, I think it makes sense. They also picked up Tyler Welsh, father-son, who is apparently a key forward. I thought Sam Welsh, or Scott Welsh, I should say. He was a forward. I don't remember too much of him, but, as I said, is a cheap fast-on, key position player, and, as I said, might help complement, when they move on for players like Burgess, who, they just sort of have around, so they'll have the 2 main ones in Thilthorpe and Fogarty, and then, as I said, maybe Welsh fills in the gap when Tex finally retires, gets a few games.
That sounds like an ideal strategy for them to work on. And then for their rookie drafts re-signings, they've re-signed Harry Schoenberg and Chris Burgess, as briefly mentioned. I'm pretty sure this is something they had already planned ahead of time, so that's, neither here nor there. Let's scroll down on my list, to Brisbane. And the first signing, no one is surprised of. Levi Ashcroft was signed by Brisbane. Everyone knew it was going to happen. However, Melbourne did try and make a play for him. We knew one team did actually try and make a play for Ashcroft. It was never going to happen. Like, he was always going to go up to Brisbane to play with his brother, and so he has.
Well, yeah, the make a play is arguable because, as I said, it's one of those things where teams have to put that bit in, which is weird because, as I said, theoretically they could say no and they'll just have Levi Ashcroft. But you know what I mean? It's just it's so weird. It's technically up to other teams to put that pick in.
Well, Ashcroft and Sam Marshall, who we'll touch on in a moment as well, they're the reasons why Brisbane tried to stack so many picks, is to use them as points for these 2 players.
Yeah, and in the end, they ended up getting a good deal because, as I said, like, any of the clubs could pick him. Like, it was unlikely that Richmond would have picked him because Sam Layla, obviously, they wanted to give him the number 1 pick.
I'm very happy that we got Layla.
He deserved it. But you know what I mean, as I said, they would have matched it still. So it would just mean that Levi got to be the number 1 pick instead, which is, technically neither here nor there. But, as I said, we tend to be a bit ceremonial in terms of those. We always like tracking the number 1 draft pick. So, But yeah, it's a bit disappointing the other teams. Obviously want to keep a good trading relation with Brisbane. So they were like, we'll just not match it until Melbourne, who decided to keep Brisbane honest. As said, all of Brisbane's picks were academy players, so it's pretty much as good as you can get for Brisbane. It's who they know, it's talent they've seen before, and Levi Ashcroft, there's no need to say, he's possibly touted to be as good, if not better, than his brother. He's already incredible. Great midfield talent. They technically will be getting a bit older in the tooth, with the midfield unit, so they have some fresh bodies in there. But they also have a good mix to rotate them.
Yeah, great.
Whether on the wing, in the forward line, wherever they really want. It's just absolutely terrific. And as I said, they also pick up another midfielder, Sam Marshall, mid-size from Queensland. So there's not really much I know about him, but again, it's just stocking talent that they have around. And Ty Gallop, there's not actually anything written about him.
Yeah,
and
I
have
couldn't
no
find
idea who he
anything
is,
on
but,
Gallup, but all I know is that he is a Brisbane Academy player. And and that Geelong did try and make a play for him, but Brisbane matched the bid on that. So it's clear that Brisbane constantly had their eye on these three specific players, Ashcroft obviously being the main one. But yeah, I think Brisbane are very happy that they got exactly what they wanted.
Yeah, but he is a key position forward.
Okay.
That, we do know that about him.
Excellent.
So yeah, as I said, just providing more depth. As I said, Joe Danaher goes. That's probably why they move up for him. But as I said, 196 centimeters is already worth a bit of draft capital. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, they already won this. Like, you already know. Like, father-son is very much still in the favour of people ticking. The picks you have to give up aren't that much, and Brisbane absolutely reamed in terms of the normal draft. Also pick up Sam Day as well.
Yes,
useful defender, especially since some of the others are getting old. Probably a bit unlucky really to be delisted from the Suns. Day obviously is also swingman as well. I think he played a bit forward during his final days. So
I believe that's true. Yes.
So and then they just pick up.
They relist because they were initially delisted. Darren Joyce and Darcy Craven via the
Darcy
rookie
Craven. I was a bit confused because I thought it was the Brisbane player that got picked up today by another team, but that's someone else. We'll talk about that later. Yes.
Yeah, I think not much more to really say about Brisbane. They got exactly what they wanted out of the draft. They pretty much have the right players already to be able to go back to back if they want. But I think it'll definitely be a harder season going ahead, considering how much other teams have bulked up the same way.
As I said, it really just depends. I can't have them anywhere but favourites from now, but we'll see. As I said, it's just important when you want to maintain a dynasty to make sure you have enough depth, because players tend to go, players tend to retire, especially after a premiership. As I said, that's normally the time where players say, yeah, I've had enough, I'll pack it in now.
Yeah.
Deservedly, of course, but So they'll be hoping this could make them a dynasty. Don't know if it will happen, but they're doing all the right moves.
Absolutely. All right, next is Carlton, and they sign Jagger Smith, Harry O'Farrell, Ben Camporiel, and Lucas Camporiel. They are twins, both under father's
Camporelli.
Camporelli, sorry, thank you.
Yeah, that's all right.
You can tell I didn't watch the draft for name pronunciations.
No, well, I actually grew up watching a tiny bit of Scott Camporelli. Pretty useful, I think, midfielder / forward for Carlton back in the day.
Oh yeah. But yes,
sort of
at pick 3. Jagger Smith.
Yes, the trade from West Coast allowed Carlton to get pick 3, and they got the player that they really wanted, Jagger Smith. He's been touted as one of the best ball users in the competition. In the draft, I should say. Carlton would be fantastic if it was competition. But, as I said, they've got enough hard nuts. What they might want is a bit of distributing talent to even further bolster their midfield stock, as well as just, as I said, they've got a few players that are getting older. So provide good in the mix. Not too much pressure to play them straight away, but with the departure of I'm blanking. The one that went GWS player that went to Carlton, that went to
now West Coast.
I don't know.
Was it West Coast?
Was it West Coast? No,
it was very late. It was very late in the trade period, wasn't it?
Yeah, Bulldogs. Well, I'm blanking. Matt Kennedy.
That's
Sorry.
right. Yes, no,
Apologies,
he would be
viewers.
a very good replacement for Kennedy. That's right.
Yeah, and especially, as he can even start in the forward line if he wants to. Half forward, provide distribution from the midfield to the forward line, where they've got some pretty nice forwards to distribute to. I would love to be kicking to the combination of Curnow and Mackay, even if they are getting older. And yeah, that's just, something to look forward to straight away. And yeah, as I said, Harry Farrell is
A key defender,
yep,
also
key
from
defender.
Victoria. He'll be perfect to replace Wiedemann. Wiedemann?
Yeah.
Yes. Once he
Wiedemann. Eventually, yeah. I don't think Wiedemann's that far. But, he's an injury risk. And, as I said, Carlton just could use a bit more toll stock in defence. So that just makes sense. No pressure to play him. But
Wiedering. Sorry, not Wiedemann. Wiedering. Jacob Wiedering. That's who I was thinking of.
Oh, you said Wiedemann.
I said Wiedemann.
Yeah. Okay.
I knew who I was thinking of. I didn't have the name correct. But yes, being a 196 key defender would be perfect replacement once he gets a bit more size on him and some more, obviously, game experience as well.
Yep. And obviously, the Camporellis.
The twins.
I don't know if Scott. Yeah, as I said, his father, very hard pressure. High pressure, midfielder-ish. Was he a forward or was he a defender? I can't remember. It was a long time ago, to be fair, but Scott Camporelli. Also played for Essendon, I forgot that.
But I think he played more games for Carlton, which is why they're eligible here.
He finished his career at Carlton. But yeah.
They're both 184 centimeters, both midfielders from South Australia. Geelong and Sydney did try to separate them, as they both made plays. But Carlton managed to keep them both and keep them together, which is going to be very interesting to see if they both get played at the same time in the same midfield.
Yeah, exactly. But, as I said, it's bulk. But, as I said, being more pressure players, they could also probably play off the halfback flank. As we said, midfielders tend to be able to start off there for the start of their career. And we saw Carlton struggle at times from the halfback. So maybe one of the Camporellis will do well. And, it's another set of brothers for them. Assuming that Corey didn't survive. So we don't know that yet. But he might get picked up again. But so far, in the rookie draft, they only picked back up Harry Charlson, which I have absolutely no knowledge of. But good on him. I don't know. Was he probably a ruck, I'm going to guess?
I have no idea, I will be honest. I couldn't find any major information about him. But, I mean...
key defender.
Well, there you go. That's actually probably a good thing. Carlton definitely need more key
defenders. But this isn't a pickup. This is a pure actual rookie from the rookie draft.
Oh, there you go.
Playing from Vic Country. So, yeah, there you go.
Give a shot to a rising young player.
Yeah, exactly. So good to see.
All right, next on our list is Collingwood. So, in the main draft, they signed Joel Cochran at pick 47 from Sydney Academy. At pick 50 is Charlie West, and at pick 56 is Will Hayes. And in the rookie draft, they re-sign or relist Oleg Markov, my boy, and Ash Johnson as well.
And this is pretty straightforward. They didn't have much to work with, so they just have a go at some fringe talent. Two key full players in Cochran and West. Cochran being defender, West being a forward, I think. Unless I got that the wrong way
Cochran
around.
is a key defender, 195.
Yeah, sorry.
New South Wales.
And Will Hayes, small forward.
West
is
a key forward, 195 from South Australia. And Will Hayes, a forward, 179 centimeters from WA.
Yep. Not too much to say. As I said, Collingwood obviously gave away most of their picks in trading, so they just, picked the best they could. Might not be too bad, as I said, pretty big draft, so maybe it is one where they can pick one of the later kids.
Yeah, it's like when a friend of ours was looking at Geelong's draft signings and was like, that's a diamond in the rough pick, that's another diamond in the rough pick, 3-time All-Australians right there.
Yeah.
Maybe Collingwood have done something similar.
Well, I said, I think Geelong is more just the fact that they're able to just pick them But as I said, key players are always a bit hit and miss there, but oftentimes it can be some of the best value picks as well. As I said, you can't predict how much players are going to bulk out, so some of them tend to progress faster than we think. So Collingwood will be hoping they have one of them. Oleg Markov, as I said, useful at times, and a lot of speed. Now, they're sort of rebuilding, so they'll eventually move from him, but still good to have for another year. And Ash Johnson, much maligned, but they need forward depth because their forward line was pretty terrible. So if he can show any signs of improvement, he'll be back in that starting lineup.
Absolutely. All right. Next on the list is Essendon, and they were quite busy, actually, during the drafts period. So at pick 13, they signed Isaac Keiko, an academy player. We originally, us at Richmond, originally tried to make a play for him, but they used their extra picks to pick him up. Pick 37 is Kale, I don't know how to pronounce it,
Gerine, maybe.
Gerine, I don't know. Pick 39 is Angus Clark. Pick 61 is Reece Unwin, I'm assuming. And at pick 70 is Zach Johnson. And in the rookie draft, they signed Archer Day Wicks.
Yep. And, we'll start with the big one, Isaac Keiko. Do you want to go through his little stats?
He's a dynamic small forward from Victoria, 175 centimeters. His speed, from what we've seen out of the combine, is absolutely incredible. It's why he's such a high draft pick. He knows how to work his way through traffic. He's brilliant ball usage. He's kicked 28 majors in most of the competitions that he's played in throughout the past 12 months. He played a lot. He played most of his games under Vic Metro, especially against Vic Country when doing the state tournaments. And overall, he made all Australian honours in the under 18s, which is very impressive.
Exactly. And the other thing from note is he has origins from Iraq, so he's technically the first Iraqi heritage player in the AFL, I think.
Yes. No, it is confirmed. He is the first Iraqi origin.
Yeah. So, obviously it's good to see, sometimes, from the first generation being able to still come through, get enough development to be such a highly touted player. And obviously, Essendon knew they were getting Isaac Keiko. In the draft. So, as I said, one of the reasons why I don't think they were too upset about losing Stringer.
No, especially with the position players that they actually picked up. It's definitely a good selection for them.
Yeah, exactly. Is that even though he might not be a straightaway sort of player, I think he will. Sorry, he might not have an impact straight away, even though he is a high draft pick, because Essendon's forward line might be a bit chop and mix this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the time spent into Keiko is much better than what they would have been doing otherwise. And otherwise, they are picking up a bit of height. Jaron, Ruckman, Goldstein looking a bit iffy last year, so good to have a backup for him. And a key defender for Essendon just makes sense because their backline, was pretty poor. And then just a couple of midfielders, I think it was.
Yes, Unwin and Johnson are both midfielders, 178 and 185 respectively, both from Victoria.
Yep. So, it's pretty much, fills a lot of needs for pretty mid-round draft picks for a fairly young team. So, but the important thing is obviously Isaac Keiko, because, as I said, I think we saw last year the variability of their forward line is something that would concern them. I think we might see a bit of a dip in terms of, production, because obviously it's hard to replicate the amount of goals that Jake Stringer was giving them. But as I said, in terms of going in the right direction, I think this is where they have to start.
It's also hard for them to have a consistent edge, because they didn't last very long last season.
Oh, man, it depends how you look at it. As I said, I still view them of a team that overperformed, but then it just caught up to them. But as I said, they will be wanting to try and instill that in the younger players, and who knows, maybe that bit of excitement there might be able to provide them a bit of consistency. Who knows, but as I said, decent handful of players. You can tell what they're trying to do, which is always the main thing.
Absolutely. All right, next on our list is Fremantle, and they sign at pick 17, Murphy Reed, pick 34, Charlie Nichols, and at pick 63, Jaron Carr, who was a father-son signing. And then in the rookie draft, pick 7, Aiden Riddle.
Yep. So I guess the first thing to mention about this Fremantle draft is sort of what happened around them, because Fremantle, before their pick, were a bit excited about the player that Port Adelaide were going to pick, who we'll mention in a second. Made an offer for West Coast to jump ahead of them. West Coast didn't want that because they were like, yeah, but you could take Bo Allen and we don't like that. So they ended up trading with Port Adelaide just to secure it for them. Got a free very late round draft pick. So Fremantle went, you know what, we'll just take the next best option on the board. And they went with Murphy Reed, which sort of makes sense. He's a midfielder, but he has played forward, which is sort of what Freo might need. They're looking for a few more avenues to goal.
Mm-hmm.
So even though, you know, you might say, oh, it's going to be hard for them to bust into, that side. That midfield unit of Young, Brayshaw, and Sarong. He might not need to. He might just rotate and even take, if Fifey gets injured, he might be looking to take his spot, or eventually when Fifey retires. As I said, makes sense in terms of that.
Yep.
As for Charlie Nichols, key forward, Freo always sort of looking for that consistency in the key forward position. They have looking good, at least for now, with Amos and Tracy, but all Freo fans know they never want to take that key position forward too lightly because they've spent years without having good solid options there. Mm-hmm. So that makes sense. And Jaron Carr, father-son from which one was it? I think Josh Carr played for Fremantle, if my memory serves me correct. He played about even split from Port and Fremantle, and I can only imagine he's a hard nut midfielder type, maybe a forward. Tackling pressure off the roof, maybe. Sometimes players are different than their fathers, but oftentimes we see a lot of players like, Jackson Archer, Young Darcy, Sam Darcy. That's
Sam
it.
Darcy?
No, Sam Darcy from Luke Darcy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So, makes a lot of sense. Few picks for Fremantle, but what they picked made sense to me. You'll hear me saying that a lot. I don't think you can really say too many teams had weird drafts. But,
I think everyone kind of selected players for positions that they definitely need to fill and work on.
Yeah, and it's such a professional competition these days. As I said, a few of these picks will be busts, but at the very least, you can see what players are trying to do. As I said, I think AFL gets one of the best mix of picking best available versus what they actually need. So,
Great. All right, next on our list is Geelong, who, whilst they had a lot of late picks in the draft, they were also quite busy, signing 7 players across the main draft and the rookie draft. So pick 44 was Jay Polkinghorne, which is a long and weird name to pronounce.
Surprise pick, yeah. I don't know if I guess is related to Jared Polkinghorne.
I'm not too sure. All I know is that he's a key forward player, 190 centimeters from South Australia.
Yeah. He used to play for Brisbane, by memory. I can't find him. Maybe it wasn't Jared, but anyway.
Whilst you're going through that. Pick 52, Jacob Mollier, who is a ruck, 202 centimeters from South Australia. At pick 66 is Lennox Hoffman, who's a key defender, 190 centimeters from Victoria. And at pick 69 is, I'm going to butcher this, Kyton Matafai Forbes, who is a forward, 188 centimeters from Victoria. And then in the rookie draft, they signed Xavier Ivisic, Patrick Rechko, and Joe Pike.
Yeah, so not the sort of draft that you want coming up in a spelling bee. But yeah, so Jay Polkinghorne, no one really had him on the draft table. He was unranked and they sort of picked him. So this is someone obviously being scouted by Geelong, which is very dangerous. They have been so good at picking these sort of players out. So I think a lot of people will see a keen eye, but being a key forward and the fact that they have other key forward talent, I think it'll be a few years before we see, the results of that. But, as I said, probably more so they take him just to keep him in the system for a while. Because, the earlier you get him in the system, the more you can shape their game style. And, apart from that, they just went for height, really. Mollier makes a bit of sense because obviously Reece Stanley is getting a bit older. So they'll eventually need a replacement for him.
Blicavs as well, probably on his last legs for a bit.
Say last legs, it's been pretty decent. And 30 years old, known for his tank, but
True.
The older he gets, the more likely he's just going to play either as more of a midfielder, defender, rather than a actual backup ruckman.
Yeah.
So,
true.
Yeah.
So definitely, putting some more time into their tools will definitely be much more helpful in the long run.
Yeah. But honestly, for Geelong picks late in the draft scares me a lot more than Geelong with the number 1 pick. So
very true.
Yeah.
Because Geelong have weird habits of being able to find diamonds in the rough.
Yeah, I think it's a bit harsh to say diamonds in. I think it's the culture. Like, as I said, you say what you want, and this is what I've always said about tanking. Like, yeah, tanking gets you talent, but having a great culture can breed talent faster. Than the draft can. We've seen it at times. When you look at the teams that have done well over the last 10 years, a lot of them haven't really had that many high round draft picks. Probably the biggest buffer to that is Richmond, I would say.
Yeah, because apart from the past 3 years, we always had pretty low draft picks and just managed to build our three premierships based on culture.
Yeah, and even Brisbane, a lot of their top players haven't been, top round picks. A lot of them have been a bit, won't say old busts, but, there's been a fair few busts with them. But they've traded pretty well and free agencyed really well to get themselves back into the competition. Geelong's scary. I don't trust them. Please don't all be all Australians.
I don't know. It's just going to be a wait and see. But there's a fair chance it's going to happen, knowing Geelong.
Knowing Geelong, exactly.
All right. Next on the list is Gold Coast. And at pick 9, they sign Leo Lombard, who is an academy player from Queensland, being an academy player. 178 centimeters. He's a midfielder. St. Kilda did originally try and make a bid for him, but Gold Coast were like, nope, he's ours. Yoink. And then at pick 49 is Cooper Bell, who's from the GWS Academy. He's a key defender, 198 centimeters from the ACT.
Yeah, and, as I said, only 2 picks for the Gold Coast Suns. Spent all their picks trying to get Noble and your boy, Rioli. Only with a couple. And, as I said, I think, draft theory, you're better off drafting Toll later on. You can get a lot of value in return, and plus, if they're good, they're obviously, they don't have to be as skillful to be good, is what I'm trying to say. So that makes sense. Liam Lombard's a bit interesting, small, live wire-ish, but, as I said, it does seem a bit like, it seems a bit too much like the sort of player that Gold Coast tend to go for, as I said, tend to be a bit, I don't want to say flashier, but, just sort of, I don't know. Maybe it's just my bias against Gold Coast, but, so there's no doubt, his talent, as I said, I think, even if, for some reason Gold Coast say no, I know, St. Kilda were scouting out their next pick, which was pick 10, a lot more, hoping they'll get him, but I think they would have been fine with Leo Lombard. It's been around the team for a while, apparently hardworking, as I said, it's just, and, what's what I said before, I think the Gold Coast midfield does need a bit of spice added to it, so maybe this is the pick. I just really hope that, it's not my initial thing that thinks that structural problems are the bigger issue when it comes to that midfield. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah, agreed. All right. And for their rookie draft picks, they signed Max Noble and Asher Easton. Not that we
Yeah,
really know
we had.
much about them.
Oh, I know about Noble. He got pinched. He was originally on Frio's list. They said, "Oh yeah, we'll re-sign you," and then Gold Coast were like, "Nah, or we're gonna take him." Um, and I think Noble still has a bit of a say in that. I'm not actually sure though.
I don't entirely know
Um,
how it works.
Actually, I don't think in the rookie draft. Yeah, I mean you can negotiate a contract. So you'd probably have set yourself up for a short-term contract or just not sign it, and then just become a real free agent next year. But yeah, Max Noble got pinched. Development player for Freo. I don't know if there were two. I mean, as I said, any player you put in the rookie draft, you tend to just be like, yeah, you might lose him. But yeah, Ruckman at 19 years old is probably worth putting a bit of investment into because, as I said, there's far more upside than risk when you're talking about pick 4 of the rookie draft.
Yeah, true. Very, very true. All right, next on our list is the GWS Giants. They were extremely busy, signing 8 players across the main draft and the rookie draft. So with pick 18, they signed Oliver Hannaford. Pick 19, they signed Harry Oliver. Pick 24, they signed Cody Angove. Pick 36, they signed Jack O. I assume that's pronounced O. And then at pick 71, they signed a GWS Academy player called Logan Smith. And then in the rookie draft, they relisted Lockie Keefe, Jacob Ware, and Josh Fahey.
Yep. So again, we'll start with the the forward and the back line. Hannaford, obviously, as I said, you can't imagine him starting too soon with the Giants forward line, the way it is. But
especially
I think
when they
just
just picked up Stringer as well.
Yeah, this is sort of a case when you have 2 draft picks. You go, well, we can invest a bit in the future. But according to his profile, he is a bit of a swing player, so maybe he actually finds himself starting off in the back line. He knows there. Obviously the departures in the halfback mean that they've got some spots to fill, which sort of gets to Harrison Oliver, which is sort of the player that I guess has been a bit compared to someone like the one that went to the Crows. Forgotten their name already. Sorry about that. But yeah, precise decision making. Off the halfback, left footer as well. Always like to see it.
Draper, the one you're thinking of?
No. From
you mean
GWS.
Oh, player that
from GWS to Adelaide, they lost a few players.
That's right. Yeah, I'm blanking on that as well. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So yeah, as I said, fill that in, and a bit of a surprise one. Cody Angove played for Claremont, in WA. So it was a bit of a reach pick, especially considering from WA too. So he's having to move a fair bit. But yeah, as I said, played for Claremont in the Colts. He's had a fair bit of match experience under his belt. So maybe they're liking that. And, as I said, midfield, high half forward. I think, as I said, they have to think about their midfield unit going forward. I don't necessarily think next year, but, in the future. So maybe, it's like an experienced body. If players go down, they can put him in. Otherwise, he'll be playing in the reserves until ready to go. And yeah, now I just realised there's 3 other players. What was it? Angove, the forward,
Angove was forward, Oliver was defender, and Hannaford was forward.
Yeah, as I said, I'm imagining they might be a bit loose on player positioning. But
especially
as I said,
knowing
losing a lot of...
that Hannaford is a swingman, so it's very helpful.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what I mean. As I said, the GWS Giants have known to being very versatile with where they play players, even the players that they re-signed. Lockie Keefe, known for playing forward and back. Jacob Ware playing inside or outside midfield, up forward, I think, even to Josh Fahey, who I think was the person who was 3-week banned from the GWS thing. So he'll be relisted to sit on the bench, but as I said, fills out their list. And the Giants are I maybe not taking a step back, but they're definitely having to retool a tiny bit due to the players that have left.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, next on our list is Hawthorn. They weren't as busy because they didn't really need to be. So they signed a pick 35 is Noah Mraz. I don't know if the M is silent or the R is silent, but it's a name. And then pick 64 is Cody Anderson. And then for the preseason draft, they just re-signed Jack Gunston. Again, he's just on a year-by-year basis at this point. It was probably cheap.
Yeah,
I'm sure he was. I think it's been talked about in the past that he's fine taking a pay cut and like just pretty much becoming like a re-rookie again, purely for the benefit of the club. Because again, he doesn't have much time left. He doesn't mind being the bench rider, the super sub. He's just enjoying playing footy with his club.
Exactly, and as I said, it's that sort of ego that's all but beneficial because, as I said, he's big enough to know, even in he's those experienced player, he can take that bench role, come back into his job, ultimate professional there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want you to have a click on Cody Anderson.
I can do that.
That's a very Richmond-esque.
He looks a bit like Ben Nason. That's
Ben Nason.
No, I thought it too when I first saw it.
In Dusty's draft class.
Yeah.
You have the picture of young Dusty, Nathan with the dreadlocks.
Draft. It's right there.
Yeah. It was a very fresh-faced draft, let me tell you. But honestly, that was an analysis. I just want to look at his hair. Noah Mraz, key forward. Key defender. He obviously a project player. He'll be years before we see him possibly take the park, unless there's a lot of injuries, considering that Hawthorn are just absolutely stacked in the back line. Well, and then Anderson.
They are extremely stacked in the back line after their moves in the trade period.
Yeah, exactly. And, as I said, Corey Anderson, it shouldn't be understated that, Hawthorn might need a bit of creativity in the forward line. So getting, a mid-forward when that knows how to kick goals in a team where they've had to rely on some of the midfielders kicking a few, so if they lose someone, it's not the biggest drop. But whether he's in that pecking order when they've got players like McDonald, what do you call it? Will Day.
Yes.
Just a little player called Will Day. And Jai Newcomb, yes. It's going to be... You wouldn't expect this year for that player either.
No, yeah, he's definitely a project player. Both of them are, honestly. For the next couple of years, I would say, unless major injuries or anything of that sort, sudden retirements, stuff like that. But no, I think Hawthorn have played their part well with the hand that they were given, especially considering the list that they have already is very well. It was very strong. They didn't really lose any massive players that they needed to keep in the off season, and they gained a bunch with Battle and Barras. Not to mention, the couple of injuries like Will Day that they've had to deal with. Once their full list is fit, they're definitely going to be able to make a play for a top 4 spot, possibly next season.
Yeah, exactly. Also, Blazy, I really need to hold on for a minute. I'll be back in a second. I just need to leave.
Go for it.
All right, I'll be back.
Sorry about that. A brief delay, but that is perfectly okay. Let's jump straight back into it. We're up to Melbourne next, and they weren't as busy. They had 2 early picks in pick 6 and pick 11, being Harvey Langford and Xavier Lindsay, respectively. And then at pick 68, they signed Aiden Johnson.
So a couple of midfielders for Melbourne. Not too much of a surprise there, considering that, some of the complications, injuries, and oldness that their midfield is currently. So they're keeping to push new blood, figure out who stays as a midfielder for the next generation, who plays in other positions. Already got a bit of other talent, like Jack McPhee, Alex Neil-Bullen obviously coming into the club, and Trent Rivers, who played midfield. So it's not like they don't have any talent there, but they just need to work it out for the future. The only other thing to note, Harvey Lang.
He went home to South Australia.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so they need to fill that spot. Yeah, sorry, I forgot. I was like, oh yeah, Neil Bullen, he's a player from another club, but a player from another club going to another club.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, and the midfielders that we know at Melbourne, they're getting on, they're injury prone now. So getting this young group of talent to start cultivating amongst their veterans is definitely important for them, because we've seen how quickly their midfield fell apart this season.
Yeah, and of the highly touted midfield run, so as I said, picks 1 to 9 all midfielders, and 1 to 11, only one being not a midfielder. Langford was the second biggest at 190 centimeters, and both were from. Wait, no, Gippsland. That's Melbourne.
It's Victoria.
Yeah,
it's out in the east.
Yeah, that's Victoria.
Yes.
So both also are Victorian, but it's not too much of a surprise because a lot of the talent in the midfield this year came from Victoria. So
yes.
Yeah,
it
makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And I don't know anything about Aiden Johnson.
No, neither do I. But I'm sure he's gonna. Hopefully, he'll be like a good depth player for them, or he might become, the next superstar. Who knows? There could be some diamonds in the low parts of the draft.
Yep.
All right. Next on our list is North Melbourne, and they were a little bit busy. Not too bad though. Kind of expected picks for the most part. So at pick 2, they signed Phil O'Sullivan, who is we'll touch on that in a minute, but he's a midfielder, 182 centimeters, also from Victoria, as we mentioned. Most of pretty much the entire top 10 is from Victoria. It's kind of crazy.
From the Kuwait Football Netball Club, which, seemingly, they're not combining the both, because that would be crazy.
That would be wild.
But, so who knows? Maybe got some advantage in the off-season competitions there as well.
Possibly.
Yeah.
All right, and then at pick 27, they had Matt Whitlock, who's key forward, 199 centimeters, also from Victoria. Pick 57 is Luke Urquhart, ? Who's also a midfielder, 190 centimeters from WA. Pick 67 is River Stevens, who is a father-son pick. Also a forward, 176 centimeters from Victoria. Then the rookie draft, they just relisted Toby Pink.
Yeah. Wow, okay. Hall of Fame member Anthony Stevens.
That's who his father is.
Yeah. Honestly, I think he played when I was watching. I just have no memory of who he was.
We're going back like 90s, early 2000s here.
Yeah, probably. So anyway, Phil O'Sullivan, second pick in the draft. As I said, very talented midfielder. North cannot turn their head away from the midfielders. Especially, if you believe the rumors that Lick Davies-Uniacke is going. I don't know if he is, but, as I said, I think, even though it is a bit of a joke that North just, ignore other areas to stack up that midfield, I think, this sort of makes sense considering how more of a reach it would have been to pick some of the key defenders. I think, this is a point where you do actually just take the best player available.
Agreed.
Especially if you have plans to try and get another one by trading up, which is what they did. They traded away next year's first round pick, big move, to Richmond to ensure that they would get Matt Whitlock, who is a key forward. I think they were just looking for anyone to accept the trade. If a lot of the clubs didn't want to do it until they found a potential sitter in Richmond, who obviously had picks to burn. It's fair to say. They put that big risk. On one side, there's so many academy players next year, so many father sons, and it's a compromised draft because there's a new team that's able to take picks in Tasmania. So you can argue that it's, possibly not the biggest loss. And it might be another draft where a lot of the first positions are midfielders. So maybe, it doesn't really matter as much. But geez, it is still a risk to take.
It is, but to be fair, they were also extremely busy this offseason in general. Like, they got a ton of veteran talent to be able to help nurture all of these young kids. But again, if the rumor is true that LDU is leaving, that's a big hole that they're going to have to fill because he's been such an important, even though, you know, they're a bottom 4 team, he's been such an important player for that midfield.
Yeah. So we're not going to put any stock in whether those rumors are true or not, but it's one of those things where you almost got to assume the worst as a list developer. You know, it's that fine balance of not putting too, like, you can't expect it. You know, you're not going to shove him out the side, but, you know, you still got to be a bit wary. So that's what we said. You know, as I said, I think Finn O'Sullivan makes sense, and you pick that with confidence because, you know, you're going to trade up. And you to make that risk of trading next year's first round, but, you know, North Melbourne just can't go draft to draft, just, you know, having the top 5 pick, because after a while, you get very diminishing returns because your players don't develop. They get shipped off, and, you know, it's a bunch of sad times. You know, and as I said, the rest, you know, as I said, River Stevens, you may as well gamble on that father-son pick. No one's really probably going to pinch him off him. Small forward too, so, you know, you think the way that North Melbourne's going to develop is they're going to be definitely a forward of the ball team, unless anything really changes. But yeah, you will probably see a couple of these players next year. You think maybe Whitlock, you know, try and give a bit less pressure on Nick Larkey. But yeah, as I said, whether we'll see all of them, it is yet to be seen. Yeah, but yeah, as I said, it's risky. But I would rather them do this than just make a series of boring moves. You know, they like the key forward. Key forwards are hard to come by. Why not put a bit of stake into it? Because yeah, as I said, we can see how quickly a club's fortunes can change when they have a firing forward line.
Yep, agreed. All right, next on our list is Port Adelaide. They weren't too busy at this draft. They signed 4 players, 3 via the main draft and 1 in the rookie draft, being at pick 15, Joe Berry, pick 33, Jack Whitlock, pick 38, Christian Moraes, and pick 13 in the rookie draft being Tom Cochrane. And I believe both Jack Whitlock and Matt Whitlock, who was signed by North Melbourne, are brothers and in fact twins.
Yes, they would be, because it would be very, very unlikely to have 2 in the same year. Shout outs to any parents that are able to do that. I think if anyone does that, that would be like an insane mother. Womb of steel you would have to have. So, yes, Joe Berry. Port Adelaide traded up for him, traded one of their later picks. That's why they didn't have pick 45. To try and ensure Joe Berry, who is a small forward, scouted by Robbie Gray. He was apparently very keen on him, interviewed him, and a little cute moment when Joe Berry said the player that inspired him the most was, in fact, Robbie Gray.
That's
so it was a bit circular there. Yeah, so as I said, Free also wanted him. You can imagine they would want a bit more of a livelier small forward, especially as Walls is getting old, but they weren't able to manage that. So yeah, as I said, for pick 15, very sensible pick. Probably for such a late pick to fill such a big need, I would say that Port's a bit lucky there. And obviously Jack Whitlock, we don't know the future of Todd Marshall, and Ollie Lord found himself a bit out of form. So again, it's like a no pressure thing. Spend some time in the SANFL, develop, and if you're good, you can find yourself in the team. Or even Finlayson, we're going to be moving on for him, not too far in the future. And considering that at one time, I think Jack was actually rated over Matt in terms of draft perspectives. You know, as I said, I think that's actually a pretty good getup. You know, hopefully he stays, because, you know, obviously they're Victorian, and, you know, Mararis, you know, a small midfielder, apparently also does a bit of work in defense, which makes sense. You know, we've got a few players that in the mix, you know, with Sin, Houston, that's wishful thinking. No, I'm forgetting. Farrell.
That's right. Kane
Farrell. And Logan Austin. So, you know, you just add another one in the mix. Make sure that if you get a few injuries, you have someone to turn on. So I'm pretty happy with this draft selection, especially as a Port fan, where we took the draft pretty well. So I'm hoping that Joe Berry is worth the hype, and you might even see him this year because, as I mentioned, Logan Evans, he tries hard, but it was a massive negative on our side in terms of forward production. So hopefully that will make us a bit more consistent, especially when we've had such a dominant midfield.
Absolutely. All right. Next on the list is a Richmond, and this is.
Oh, we won't spend too long on this, shall we?
No, I think we have to. We have five. We have one, two. Actually, we have 6 picks in the top 25, so we might have to take a bit of a dive on the Richmond list. So at pick 1, we went with Sam Layla. Pick 7, Josh Smiley. Pick 12, Taj Houghton. Pick 14, Jonty Fall. Pick 21, Luke Traynor. Pick 23, Harry Armstrong. Pick 28, Thomas Sims. And at pick 58, Jasper Olga. Fun fact, all 8 of these players are from Victoria. And a lot of these players also played together as like in their junior clubs. So one thing that I read that our selectors really wanted to focus on was getting players that had existing cohesion and existing relationships, because that makes it a lot easier to develop in terms of adding that into like a culture and like a team it's a team that is already a very close and very oriented together. So I think that was something that they really wanted to focus on. So let's go to the number 1 draft pick first of all, shall we? Sam Layla, 187 centimeters, midfielder, pure midfielder. He knows how to kick goals, very strong out of stoppages, which is something that we very definitely need. Again, that was meant to be something that Taranto and Hopper were meant to help with us with those clearances. We were winning clearances, but we were winning stoppage clearances, not center clearances. So we've always needed a strong center clearance player, and I think Layla covers that very well. Smiley, same thing too, because they're both pure midfielders, although Smiley is the taller one. He's at 194 centimeters.
Yeah, tallest of the midfielders I was referring to before with Langford, when I was talking about Langford, who was the second tallest.
Yes, correct.
So another 5 centimeters on the second tallest is pretty huge.
And he could end up being a backup ruckman if need be. We're definitely one thing I wish we had kind of looked for was like a more prominent ruck, especially considering we were meant to relist Mate Kalina in the rookie draft or the preseason draft, and we didn't. So I'm very curious to see what goes on with that, considering he's technically still the tallest player in the AFL, just hasn't actually played a game yet.
Yeah.
But yes, otherwise I'm very, very happy with the players that we signed. Taj Houghton, 182 centimeters, is a forward, small forward. He's very, very talented with both legs, and both feet, I should say, which is very good to see. Jonty Fall, I don't know too much about him. He's a tall forward, 195 centimeters. He's probably going to be a player that plays mostly alongside Lafau, I'm going to say, and might take over the sort of role. Well, he'll probably end up taking over the role that Lynch currently has, especially considering Lynch is currently injury prone, and I doubt he's going to play any more than this year. So cultivating more talent to be able to pretty much kick goals and take marks is something that we definitely need up in the forward line, because I don't even expect Lynch to play 10 games next season. I'm going to be honest.
That's fair.
Then Luke Traynor, 194 key defender, which is perfect. Granted, I already think our backline is, well, once we get out of our injury period, is very solid. But having that extra key defender back there, especially now that Grimes is retired, and I believe Tyler Young is still primarily under injury, same with Josh Gibcus. It'd be good to have someone to train back there in case more injuries like that happen. Like, pray tell, no more ACLs, please. I am begging.
Yeah.
So that'll be very important. And then Harry Armstrong, 195, key forward. Again, we'll train alongside Farrell and anyone else up there. Lynch will take him under their wings. I think a lot of these players will work really well alongside Lafau, because whilst Lafau doesn't have the same height, he's got that body strength and that leap to be able to
Yeah.
balance really well against these two rookies.
And what you want is you probably want that body contest to allow Lafau to have more of a running start, leap at the ball from the front of the pack, while players like Fall or Armstrong take the hopefully when they bulk up the best key defenders.
Yes, correct. And then for Thomas Sims, he's 199 centimeters, also a key forward. Although I think we might try and trial him as a ruck, being that he is the tallest rookie, the tallest draft pick that we've signed. And then Jasper Olga is also another forward, 182 centimeters. Again, pretty much was mostly play that small forward sort of role. Maybe he's more of a crummer. Again, someone who can just tackle in the forward line would be really nice. And I think what I read of his bio, he's someone that can do that very effectively. And just we need more of that high pressure again in our forward line.
Yeah, and I guess we've already sort of gotten your vibes, but I think you remember me saying before the draft before the draft, that I wanted to see Richmond go out their way to take a lot of key position players, not only because, as I said, you're not going to keep them all, but the currency they'll provide, even if they don't work out, is normally pretty good. You won't get to keep them all, but as you said, they have worked together, and considering that Richmond will probably have to play a few debutants round one, that extra cohesion will benefit for them. It all makes sense. I really like this draft from Richmond. Whether it all works out is who knows. But as I said, you can definitely see that they put real effort into making sure that this draft pick is really good, because it is one that will set them off for the future and probably dictate, I would say, at least the next 5 years of how Richmond go.
Yeah, I agree. Especially if we're able to keep some of the young talent that we already have and we're already cultivating, like your Judson Clarks, your Ralph Smiths, Steely Green, players that we've either gotten from the draft period or have recruited over the past couple of years. Being able to develop them alongside this new crop of players, and hopefully the veteran talent that we have, like especially Nathan Broad, for example. Broady's been very, very good at introducing and making all of new players feel comfortable. He's pretty much one of the key leaders in the club now, even though he's not a captain or anything, which is great to see. So yeah, hopefully our veteran presence will be able to help these younger players in their growth.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said, maybe still a bit of pain next year for Richmond fans, but I am more optimistic than pessimistic for their long-term future and even their short-term future. I think we might even see a bit of improvement next year.
Agreed. All right, next on our list is St. Kilda, and they were very, very busy in their draft period. So at pick 8, they signed Toby Travaglia. Pick 10, Alex Toro. Pick 32, James Barat. Pick 45, Hugh Boxshall. 53, Alex Dodson. And pick 60, Patrick Said. And in the rookie draft, they re-signed Brad Crouch.
Yep. So the biggest thing, obviously, is... also the biggest thing, was getting Alex Taru at number 10. Obviously, it's very hard playing chicken when it's the first key position player to get taken, because St. Kilda really, really wanted this kid. But, as I said, you do the draft, you think, okay, you see, I should say, shout outs to Cal Tuimi for getting the top 10, almost perfect. The only thing he didn't get was, obviously, Essendon not needing to use their pick for Keiko in the top 10. But he got it all nailed. So, St. Kilda didn't need to do anything to try and lock in Tauri. They were just able to get him. So a player they really believe in, key defender, probably a battle replacement in the not too near future, if not next year. And they still get to bolster up their midfield with Toby Travaglia.
Travaglia, I think.
Who, Travaglia, who, as I said, if they did use their pick at top 10, might have been at risk of getting taken. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, as I said, Saints, we've talked at length about how bad their midfield has been, so I can only see this as a win. Arguably, it's a bit of a shame, probably being the worst, quote unquote, of the best midfielders available for St. Kilda, with the way that they finished the year. But I think, with the amount of talent there are, I think you would rather have those wins in the back and still take a very good talent in Toby. As for the rest, as I said, St. Kilda are really just looking to bolster stocks in key areas, which is obviously midfield and tolls. As I said, they've got small forwards to cover, they've got small defenders for a while, so all that makes sense. And they pick up Brad Crouch, who is still decent experience and a bit of midfield presence if he can get a solid run at it.
Absolutely agreed. So just to note, James Barrett is key defender, 193 from Victoria. Hugh Boxall, midfielder, 187 from WA. Alex Dodson is a ruck, 200 centimeters from South Australia. And Patrick Sett is a forward, 180 centimeters from Victoria. And obviously everyone already knows about Brad Crouch.
Yeah-ish.
Alright, next on our list is Sydney, and they were also extremely busy in the draft period. They signed 4 from the main draft, 4 from the rookie draft, having also relisting 2 former players. So for the main draft, pick 22, Jesse Detoli. Pick 26, Ned Bowman. Pick 41, Riley Bice. Pick 55, Riak Andrew, who is the brother of Mac Andrew at the Gold Coast Suns. And in the rookie draft, pick 14, Blake Liedler. 25, Ben Patton. And they relisted Aaron Francis and Joel Hamling.
Yeah. Well, I didn't actually see Riak Andrew as Mac Andrew's brother, so I mustn't have read that news. But a lot of it makes sense. One of the biggest issues for Sydney with their forward line when Papley wasn't firing, they got a lot of tolls, but they need to put more pressure when the ball goes to the ground. And their one-on-one defense was pretty mediocre, so getting a possible intercept defender in Riak Andrews, if there's anything like Mac, athleticism allows him to play off, and hopefully he can take intercepts like his brother. So very low risk, but high reward there. And as for the players they pick up, Ben Patton, that sounds familiar. It's not the other Patton's brother, is he? What was his name?
I just realized I was muted.
Oh, okay.
I don't think he's related to Jonathan Patton, because I think Patton was double T.
No, it's another Patton.
How long have I been muted for? That worries me.
I don't know. But anyway, I can only assume you were saying, wow, that's fantastic analysis, Cyric. You are spot on as always.
Yes. I'm hoping I at least read everyone out. And I wasn't muted for that. Did you hear me read everyone out?
Yeah, I heard everyone out.
Okay, good.
You read everyone out.
Okay, we're good.
So
then.
that's good.
I panicked.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so then we've got
Aaron Francis
Aaron
and Joel
Francis
Hamling coming back.
Joel Hamling. Again, as I said, Aaron Francis might find himself a bit on the outer. Joel Hamling might find himself a bit... you might see him a couple of times. He was a bit injured last year. But, as I said, it's just that defender depth that they're getting. Ben Patton. He used to play for St. Kilda. That's it.
There you go.
That's what I was thinking, because I was like, oh, is it the brother of the person that played for St. Kilda? But no, it is literally just the person
literally the same
who used to play for St. Kilda.
There you go.
Yeah, anyway. So, so what's that? A bit of midfield depth, is it?
Yeah, probably. But just for note, the Tolley is a forward, 179 centimeters from Victoria. Bowman, also a forward, 187 centimeters from South Australia. Bice is the defender, 185 from Victoria. And Riak Andrew is a key defender at 192 centimeters from Victoria, as Mac Andrew is also from Victoria.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, so I think they got that. Yeah, and as I said, again, all this makes sense. It's just whether they're, with the limited picks, all they need to do is patch up, and hopefully they should, well, for Sydney fans, hopefully, they should fix up some of the minor issues that sort of accumulated to that big grand final loss.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, next on our list, we're going out west to West Coast. We're at pick 16. They signed Bo Allen. Pick 30, Job Shanahan. Pick 46 is Tom Gross. Pick 48 is Luca Grego. And pick 65 is Hamish Davis.
Yeah, and obviously the big one, Bo Allen. Eagles essentially took a bit of a gamble. Whether you want to call it a gamble, I think they always had it comfortably that they were going to get Bo Allen when they traded the number 3 pick for it. Because I think they would have picked Bo Allen over Jagger Smith. I really think, being a WA kid, relationship, strongly to the club.
Mm-hmm. Having already played for Peel Thunder in the past.
Yeah, exactly. Well, obviously Peel's free A's thing, but you know what I mean. It's just yeah, exactly. It's absolutely great, and a few of the other players. They got a few key players. A few sliders apparently. Job Shanahan, apparently a fairly rated key forward, but has the problem of playing in the country, and those snobby Victorians don't really like that. If you're not from a private school, they don't care about you.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I'm just tongue-in-cheek there, but
I know,
yeah,
but there is some truth to it.
Yeah, exactly, and it's what other teams, especially non-Victorian teams, have to keep an eye out, to try and get the best available talent. And when you get someone from the country, they're sort of used to living in remote areas or areas where they're not so busy, so some kind of more likely able to take a risk as long as you obviously get around and support them, which West Coast normally do. They are at least a terrific club when it comes to managing, looking after players in terms of that. And as I said, they got a few others. Luca Grego, adds a bit of depth in that back pocket region. And apparently they think Hamish Davis is a draft steal. West Coast really went all out saying that all their picks were undervalued, which again, I got no idea.
No,
I'm not going to be. So, as I said, it will be interesting. Maybe it's just a tactic by them, feeding into the underdog story, but, it'll just be interesting to see, whether they actually did a bit of reaching there. Obviously, when you're a, pretty lowly on the ladder, you've only got a couple of top 30 picks. You got to try and be a bit creative to make up the other bits. So maybe they've done that. But you know what I said, Bo Allen and probably Job Shanahan. I know Eagles have 2 good key forwards in, Waterman and Allen. But yeah, as I said, they probably want a bit of depth there just in case one of those go down.
Which is exactly what we saw this season when Oscar Allen went down. And
yeah, exactly. And they've got the other Williams who's done all right. They've got Campbell Chesser, which has been, he hasn't really been a great midfielder. He hasn't really been a great forward when he's been on the park. So, adding more to the mix there can only do them good. Hopefully they can just get the ball into their forward line a bit more next year.
Yeah, exactly.
And they didn't have anyone re-rookie, did they?
No, they did not.
Gone on. Okay, cool.
All right, next on our list, and our last team on the list, is the Western Bulldogs. So with pick 20, they signed Cooper Hines. Pick 29, Lockie Jacques. I'm going to assume, it sounds strange. Pick 31, Josh Dolan. Pick 51, Sam Davidson. And pick 62, Luke Kennedy. Fun fact, all 5 of these players are all from Victoria, so they're all like local homegrown talent, technically. But they kind of went all pretty much all over the ground in terms of positions. So Cooper Hines, who we'll touch on mainly in a second, midfielder. Jacques the defender, Dolan forward, Davidson forward, and Kennedy defender. Oh, sorry, midfielder.
Yeah, sorry, I gave a very resigned yeah then while you were talking. I didn't mean to say put down on the Bulldogs. I just think that's probably a bit where they're at. They've got decent structure, but there's a lot in each line where they could possibly look to tidy up. I especially think moving out the back half, which is probably where some of the midfielders, some of the defenders are looking to bring a bit of talent in there. But otherwise, as I said, they've still got some players looking to replace a few players getting a bit older, like Liberatore. I wouldn't say Bontempelli yet, but you still got to think about it. And obviously losing McRae.
Almost going into 30s. Or
thought Bont was 30.
Actually, he might be 30.
But he might
I
not
think
be.
he is 30.
Yeah. But as I said, I hope there's like a fair few more Bont years yet, but always got to think about these things. And yeah, as I said, just another key forward. Not key forward, but I guess at 191, you could almost call that key. But yeah, as I said, they've got to make decisions on what they're going to do with some of their forwards. So adding another one into the mix, probably wouldn't do them too much harm.
Bont is...
not that exciting.
Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry.
Bont is 29 and his birthday was yesterday, as of recording.
Oh well, have a coast to coast happy birthday from Bontempelli. We love him.
We do.
Again, both of us were very disappointed. He pulled so badly in this year's Brownlow medal, and we only wish
really
him
did
the
deserve
best.
it. But I mean, when you look at like the performance at like, I'm already blanking. Jesus.
Cripps.
Yes, thank you. If you look at the performances that Cripps put up, it's very fair that he deserved it.
Yeah. But yeah, the only other thing I can say is the Bulldogs are still absolutely loving a mid forward who Cooper Hines is very tall, plays midfield and forward. So he'll be into that mix. What can I say? The Bulldogs, they know what they like.
Yeah,
a midfield that can play in the forward line.
Absolutely.
It's like, one of a lot of them. They've Sanders, Gallagher, Riley West, all technically can play in the midfield. So, and then the forward line. So another one in there. So I don't know. Maybe that's a new meta. Maybe the new meta is just 22 mid forwards.
Yeah, I mean that sounds accurate, especially for the doggies. All right.
Yeah.
Before we touch on the AFLW, we're going to briefly touch on the Supplemental Selection Period signings, and or just notifications as to who is training with who during the summer. So Essendon picked up Jackson Pryor, who was playing for the Brisbane Lions. He departed at the end of the season after struggling for opportunities to break into that side. I mean, considering they won the premiership, you can see why he was struggling to break into the side. His father is also played 81 games for the Bombers and then finished his career at West Coast. Just as a brief note, so in case he wanted to be able to go over to West Coast, he was able to do that. It is a selection that will kind of help with the loss of Jake Stringer. Although I think height-wise, it's just going to be more of a, not necessarily a 50-50, like a straight swap for a player, but it's just more like someone to help in that forward line just a bit more.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that. I think he'll go back line. Honestly, again, Essendon's key one-on-one defending was absolutely woeful.
That's true.
Obviously, it depends how much they rate Pryor, because, as much as the lines were, pretty big, hard to get into, their defense did have a couple of holes with the injuries that Pryor didn't work himself into. So that's probably why he thought, the pecking order wasn't quite there for him. But, as I said, young kid, he has actually shown a tiny bit. I vaguely remember him playing, and I don't remember him being too bad.
No, I think we've
really
definitely
see him as
talked
a
about
liability
him at some point over the past 12 months.
Yeah, so, as I said, I think that's just, a really good pickup for the Bombers. You don't give up too much for him. Give him another chance, which you love to see. And, as I said, even if he does go in the forward line, he is fairly a need there anyway. So, probably good use of a spot. As I said, they're looking also at... the Dogs. We're looking at the other one, so...
Yes.
We'll go
but the Bombers still have
Fremantle.
one rookie spot open.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
They are looking at Kane Baldwin, as he was injured for a lot of the 2024 season. So they might just use that to re-sign him. But onto Fremantle, they signed Quentin Narkle, his Quentin's official third club of his career. I think it's good for him. Like you mentioned before, in the Discord server, that he's been a bit maligned at the other clubs, but he always tries hard. He always does his best. It's just sometimes he says, "Oh, you didn't say maligned specifically, but like."
Yeah, I wouldn't say maligned. I think it's just
he's a very
he's never quite
player.
Yeah, he's never quite filled the need because, as I said, with Port Adelaide, like we could have argued you need a bit of a spark there, but, so we get a bit of that Rioli, and it's just more, he doesn't provide enough goals, for what Port needed.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I said, we've already got a few players in the forward line, not exactly contributing enough goals. So when you add up the net, something has to go to try and get, some more goal-scoring people that we hope that Lukosius and Richards maybe be, which puts Narkle out the pecking order. But as for Freo, they've got a few goal scorers. They could actually use a bit of speed and pressure. I would imagine this is more for depth if one of Frederick or Bolton goes down, and then Narkle can go in. Plus, he can play Waffle in his home state while he does that. I don't think he'll be in the best 22, but I definitely wouldn't be cringing if you saw him on the team sheet for Freo.
Yeah, I think he's probably at least, probably maybe like best 25, 26. Like definitely like that next, he's like right below Bolton, essentially. If Bolton or Frederick go out, he's pretty much that next straight spot.
Yeah. And that's even assuming if both of them play, because, we'll talk about that. But yeah, definitely, Freo definitely at least have versatility there. So whatever they do with their forward line, they'll have options.
Yeah, exactly right. All right, and then the Western Bulldogs invited Werribee superstar Don Brew to trial at the Whitten Oval. He had just won the JJ Liston Trophy this previous season in the VFL, as well as captaining Werribee to their first flag in 31 years. He's a 27-year-old, so he's like he's a mature age. He'd be a mature age recruit if they do sign him. But that's honestly, I don't know much more else about him. But I mean, if it works out, it works out. We'll see how that goes. And then Carlton are looking at former Hawk Denver Granger Barras, ex-Pirate Liam McMahon, and recently delisted Blues, which is really funny because they could have just kept them. Sam Durden and Matt Carroll for their SSP selections. So we'll keep an eye on that over the next week or two as the SSP period plays out.
Yeah, but it gives them options as well. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if Dennis Granger Barras gets picked up by any club. Because as I said, key players are very hard to come by. It was a bit vanilla at Hawthorn, I will admit. But as I said, in terms of depth, it's pretty hard to get those players at times. So getting a warm body like that, would be good for a few clubs. I'm surprised some of the other Victorian teams who have struggling defences haven't had a look at him. But yeah, as I said, as for the others, I think they'll just, it's basically a mini competition to see who gets onto the list. But yeah, can't have the luxury.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know if any other teams have list spots for them to possibly go to. But yeah, as I said, hopefully at least some of them can find some new homes next year.
Fingers are crossed that their careers shall continue. All right, let's move on to the AFLW preliminary finals, starting with the one that you probably don't really want to talk about, but you got to talk about, is North Melbourne versus Port Adelaide at Icon Park on Saturday afternoon.
A blistering Saturday afternoon. Said AFLW had to enact their heat policy. It was, I think officially it was 35, 36 degrees. There was a maximum of 37 predicted.
I was out in the countryside. It was very warm.
Yeah, I definitely, if it didn't actually reach it, the feels like was definitely there. And honestly, right from the start, you could just tell that North Melbourne were on another level. For the first couple of minutes, Port, tried. But, as I said, Alice O'Loughlin got a couple of goals early. Jasmine Garner, Talia Randall, all, really big names for the North Melbourne absolutely getting it done. Their midfield was absolutely insane. Where Port Adelaide, as I said, tended to struggle in areas last week and just couldn't get the hands on the ball. No Port Adelaide player got more than 20 disposals. Whereas, as I said, there was Garner and Riddell knocking 28 and 26 apiece, which is absolutely insane. Garner probably having one of the best games I've seen her play, which is admittedly not as much. But yeah, she had 8 clearances, was absolutely fantastic in the middle. And as I said, Ash Riddell, well, both of them are probably, looking to be smokies if Ebony Marinoff doesn't win her AFLW Best Player Award, Brownlow Medal.
I believe that's on tonight as we're recording this.
Yeah, so I was actually going to do an awards thing next week if we do an episode, cover the Grand Final and the AFLW Awards, which are mostly this week.
Yep.
So good luck for them. You'll probably know when you hear this, who's won what. But what I said, absolutely gold for North Melbourne to have 2 of their best absolutely firing. Vicky Wall, as I said, it was a surprise 3 goals from her. Not always the most pronounced, name for North Melbourne, but, as I said, it just really goes to show how deep their lineup goes. And, it was an absolutely good game for her as a half forward. And, yeah, as I said, in terms of actually possession, as I said, Port were absolutely smacked around, basically almost under 100 disposals, outmarked 63-21. Well, 29. Wait, that can't be right. It says 29 goal assists. I can do my math. That's just an error, considering there was only 12 goals kicked.
That's probably a little bit
there.
of an error, but that's okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's why you have the experts to vet that out. But 11 inside 50s to none. Marks inside 50s to none. And a pretty dominant 43-29 inside 50s. As we saw last week, it was pretty similar in the inside 50 count. Port Adelaide versus Hawthorn, but it just goes to show how dangerous North are when they get their game on. They're able to convert. They've just got so much talent that is able to, clamp the screws, not make Port unable to find any way into this game. On the flip side, Port's forward line were absolutely shut down. Even when the entries were there, they weren't having much of anything. Julia Tickle didn't have much to do. Gemma Houghton eventually got back into the game, but overall, there was just not much, she really could do. And yeah, as I said, some of the other players like Ebony O'Day got pretty much towed up in her matchup. And yeah, there's not really much to talk about, I thought Goody and Dowrick tried hard at times. But yeah, there was really not much coming out from Port Adelaide. So yeah, I'll pop a window too with 5 clearances for, a young lady against such a prominent midfield. It was really good there. But yeah, as I said, yeah, pretty much just absolutely smacked. Emma King also, again, we talked about last week about, a pretty strong shutdown performance. Scholes still did pretty good with 27 hitouts, but only 7 disposals. Bit of clearances, bit of meters gained. But I think Emma King, considering the quality that Schultz has been able to be this year, still did a pretty good job. So yeah, that's probably, unfortunately, yeah, there's not really much to say about this game. It was an absolute spanking. Funnily enough, sort of mirrors the regular season, how, Port beat Hawthorn and then unfortunately got absolutely towed up. Unfortunately, Port Adelaide also lost to North in the regular season by quite a big margin. So really, it was always a big ask. It was great to see that Port had momentum, had belief, but at the end of the day, quality just really ran out this game. Not much of a chance there. and the Kangaroos make back-to-back finals, hopefully looking to win one.
Yeah, it's 78-21. It's a massive scoreline, and especially considering Port didn't score their first goal until that last quarter is insane defense work and just insane midfield work from North all across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, it's not just their forward line because they have been known to dismantle teams. But yeah, as I said, they've taken some good teams to pretty big score lines. You finished with the percentage was ridiculous this year. 315.4. You don't do that without
That is ridiculous.
Absolutely demolishing teams. So, it would be a big upset if they were to lose. But as we've seen, there's a team that's done it before, and they are very willing to try and do it again.
That's a very good segue over to the Brisbane v Adelaide game held up in Brighton Homes Arena in Ipswich, where it was a much closer margin, by only 18 points. But it was still a very, very strong win by the Brisbane Lions, prepared to go back-to-back.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, at the start of the game, it really looked like Adelaide had a lot of the advantage. They didn't exactly kick away from Brisbane. Brisbane almost tied it up before the halftime, before a goal by Chelsea Randall, who looked absolutely dead set on taking the game by herself. Kicked a bit of the separator. But after that, it was pretty much old Brisbane. The match had a very slow start, I should say, because Adelaide started off with 3 behinds. A couple of them were a bit gettable. And then Brisbane, looking to get one against the old flow of play. Poor Sophie Conway goes into an open goal, running in from about, 20 meters out, a slight angle, absolutely muffs it. Considering they won, it was a pretty funny miss. I think if they'd lost, you might be losing a bit of sleep over that miss, but all ends well for her. And unfortunately, Brisbane in that period missed 2 goals from about 20 meters out. But Dakota Davidson was a very rush kick from general play, so we'll forgive her. And, as I said, Adelaide took a bit of dominance. Their midfield was going absolutely fantastic. Marinoff was absolutely asserting herself onto the game in the midfield, as I said, which allowed Chelsea Randall to go forward. She was taking marks inside 50. Gould took a couple of marks inside 50, was providing a tough matchup for them. And, as I said, it really looked like they were just going to eventually overrun Brisbane. Their best defender, Natalie Grider, she had a few intercepts, but apart from that, they seemed to get getting on top of her, while Crows players like Bedell, Allen, and Goodwin were having fairly good games. And then the grip, it just sort of flipped on the second half. And the player to step up and really separate these two teams with a big third quarter, I thought, was Kathy Svarik. She went really big after having a very quiet opening half. She kicked the goal herself, but the amount she was able to do in the midfield really lifted her team. Again, as I said, it's sort of funny how, again, we've got a bit of this mirror. Not so much a big deficit, but in terms of form deficit, Brisbane able to come back and storm home like they did against Geelong in the men's. Whether that's a sign of things to come, who knows? But again, players like Dakota Davidson, I mentioned how Gould and Randall in the first half had the game on their terms. Dakota Davidson had the game on her terms for Brisbane in that last half. And, as I said, their midfield started getting on top of it. Courtney Hodder also got very much involved in the game. And I think one of the best players, probably overall, I would actually say, was Orla O'Dwyer. She was sort of playing on the wing, a bit off halfback. Got a few clearances. Her disposal was really good. Set up a lot of play. And, took a few marks. And really just provided a bit of class, which complemented a lot of the hard-working Brisbane players. A few players racking up the tackles. Natalie Grider, who I mentioned before. Ali Anderson, really good player. And Sophie Conway, all racking above 7 tackles. Whereas Adelaide, while they were tough, Ebony Marinoff, with 10 tackles herself, it definitely dropped off from there. And just going through the general stats. If you're just looking at it, you think it's a fairly even contest. Brisbane getting a few more tackles, like I mentioned. But really, it was the class of Brisbane in the second half versus Adelaide, who were, still puttering around a bit. I said last 2 weeks it was good to see them overcome what I thought was a bit of up and down sort of form coming into this final series. Not so much losses on paper, but you could see they weren't quite getting the value out of some of the good players. And I think Brisbane just took a hold of this. I mentioned I haven't really taken too much note of Brisbane this year, but one thing I can tell you, every time I've seen them, they've just been a barometer of consistency, which, as I said, should put them in very good stead for the grand final. Because we've seen times at North, for a winless team, still struggle to put a few teams away. So this will be a massive danger game where Brisbane will be very hungry to be the first team to go back-to-back in terms of premiership.
And that is a perfect segue to preview the grand final itself, actually. It is being held Saturday night. Fun fact, it is the first AFLW night grand final at Icon Park. North Melbourne hosting because, again, for the AFLW, it's a travelling grand final. Whoever pretty much finishes in that main spot pretty much gets to host it. Therefore, it is being held here in Victoria. Again, as we've just seen, North Melbourne just absolutely decimated Port Adelaide. Brisbane extremely hungry to go back-to-back. After they came back strong in that second half against Adelaide, it's going to be an incredible shootout, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Because, as I said, even though both defenses have been pretty solid, these forward lines are really a step above a lot. And I thought Adelaide's forward line was very good, even if they are inconsistent. They still scored 4-8 themselves. So they still had scoring shots. But 7-8 from Brisbane up against a pretty good defense. Shows that these teams are capable of scoring against decently defensive teams. Obviously, the first time North Melbourne were able to get a win against Brisbane was earlier this year, for their history, I should say, where they won 78-34. So they've already had a big win against them in the books. But apart from that, Brisbane's won every one of their matchups, including, obviously, that grand final win last year where they won 27-44, fairly dominated. It was a very big surprise that they were able to win so comfortably. But yeah, honestly, in terms of, I wouldn't say theory ball for grand finals. Normally it's like the team that easily gets through the prelim, I always think has a harder time in the grand final. I don't know whether that's, a mindset thing or whether it's just, just sort of the way things goes. And as I said, Brisbane's been very good. They're, in terms of finals, they've been in almost half of the entire AFLW Grand Final series. Oh, sorry, not series. They have been in over half, but almost in over half of AFLW's Grand Finals, which is absolutely insane. And, coached by one of the best in Papa Starcevic, Craig, that is.
Yes.
So yeah, it'll be very interesting. Really, I can't tell you in terms of matchup, just because there's so much star talent who I think's exactly going to get over the top. I will say that Brisbane will need to put some sort of clamps on North Melbourne's midfield, because unlike Adelaide, where if you can get Marinoff, you can sort of at least start, to restrict Adelaide's game, where North just, it's absolutely impossible with the amount of talent they've got in the midfield. So I think Brisbane will need to find an avenue in scoring. They'll, even if they give up a few goals, if they can play aggressively, maybe put a bit of pressure on North Melbourne, who is still a young team, a lot of experienced players that they've gotten. But, as I said, they've still got a core of young players that, haven't played Grand Finals, because obviously they played last year, but not quite the Grand Final experience that Brisbane's been able to have. So yeah, it'll be very interesting there. And, in terms of the night grand final, it's going to be a bit interesting. Again, I don't really think too many Melbourneites are going to say that Icon Park is their favourite venue. I was a bit surprised to see it play there. Hopefully they can get a pretty decent crowd in. As I said, I think personally Icon crowds have been a bit disappointing. But hopefully, considering the teams that are playing, considering the matchup, hopefully they can get around the women's because, as I said, despite, a lot of talk, it's been a pretty grueling season. And I think, a lot of ladies in this really deserve a good send-off for a hard-fought season. It hasn't been easy. I know they haven't had as much injuries as any other teams, both North and Brisbane. But they still had to play that grueling schedule. And for North, they be the first team to go undefeated through a grand final. Through the whole competition, with their only loss of points being against GWS in that draw.
Yep.
And Brisbane, can they, get a surprising win for, how dominant a team they are. Not many people would be tipping the Lions to win this. I'm still going to back in North. I just think with the ridiculous amount of talent, it's hard to go against them. But I definitely think it'll be a lot closer than the first week matchup. Obviously, that was round one. Sometimes you can get a bit rusty. And I just think Brisbane looks so set now that it's hard to think that they wouldn't panic at any stage. Port got overwhelmed very easily, but I don't see that happening against Brisbane.
Yeah.
Maybe North kick away at the end. Maybe they win by 20. But I definitely don't see the game being done and dusted by the first.
No, I definitely think with the amount of talent, the amount of skill that these players have, granted, again, like you said, North Melbourne don't have as much finals experience as Brisbane does, especially in terms of winning finals. Brisbane have a lot more experience in that regard. But with the way that North have fought this season, again, going on a complete win streak apart from that draw, I think they have the stronger mindset, but I think Brisbane's hunger for wanting to set a new precedent for the AFLW is what's going to separate them the most.
Yeah, exactly. And, as I said, it shows how much I respect Brisbane. And I know I haven't been giving them, like I said, I've told, I haven't watched them as much, but, as a club, you sort of just know that they've got a certain standard. And, as I said, considering how ridiculously insane this North Melbourne lineup is, and anyone in the AFLW in Melbourne that's keen to watch, I would go down because you're essentially seeing probably a once-in-a-lifetime group with some of these players. Even the fringe players I haven't really mentioned, like Bella Eddy, Brejnahan, Libby Birch is another one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure if I've mentioned Talia Randall yet. Really good forward. I think I did when I was discussing, but yeah, as I said, so, as I said, they go deep. So it'll be a very tough ask for them to win. But I still think they're in with half a chance. It will take a few things to go their way, but they're definitely in with a chance. I just think North Melbourne, by all logic, should come out this game with a victory and their first AFLW trophy.
Just on that note, for Brisbane specifically, if the Brisbane girls do win this weekend, will this be the first time in AFL/AFLW history that the same club has held the trophy in the same year?
Yes, and this is what the insane thing is. Ever since I saw the stat, ever since Josh Dunkley went to Brisbane, Brisbane have been present in all grand finals in every of the top level competitions. So that's AFL men's and AFLWs. Yep, which is, insane because, as I said, I don't think Josh Dunkley does any coaching for the women's. So, apologies if I say it's completely unrelated. Yeah, I know that. But, as I said, I'll say it's completely unrelated, the impact on the women's competition. But you know what, as said, and this is what Starcevic was saying before with the McLennan Trophy. You have to say that Brisbane have been the gold standard in terms of clubs for the last 2 years.
What year did the Doggies win the grand final in the women's? Was it? It was one of the earliest, wasn't it? It was like
2018, I think.
okay.
It was Monconti's breakout season.
Yes, that's correct. Before we acquired her.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's because I knew it was one of the early seasons, like, but I didn't know how early.
Yeah, no, I don't even think the the competition was around when Bulldogs won their first. 2016 or 17, I can't remember. But yeah. So yes, but yeah, in terms of dual premierships, yeah, that's never happened before. But
so
yeah,
again,
as I said,
the Brisbane girls want to set multiple massive precedents, which is if they pull it off, is going to be insane for the history books.
And I think, some of these clubs have really embraced bringing both codes together. I think Brisbane are another example of that. Sydney, Port Adelaide, Fremantle, I see a lot doing. Hawthorn, I see a lot. Whenever they do their press releases, whenever they do their AFL talk, they also mention the winners' competition. And you can tell, I don't want to say some clubs don't take it as seriously, but you can tell there's good cohesion, and I think that's also representative of good club culture.
Mm-hmm.
When you have both represented so well, it breeds, it trickles through. And even as I said, the team like North Melbourne, I'm not exactly sure. I don't peruse their socials as much. But when you're down on the men's competition, you have something to look forward to. When you have such a stack of high quality players in the women's competition, hopefully bringing that franchise a bit of joy.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be, I mean, again, another Brisbane win wouldn't just be big for the AFLW as a whole, and just to be able to display all of this incredible talent that is slowly being cultivated over the years. But just it's big for football in Queensland. It's big for AFL in Queensland. Let me be more specific.
Yeah, and as I said, Icon Parks, they've been milling crowds, but they pretty much have the same as. On the flip side, Brisbane had pretty much the same as Icon in terms of attendance this week. I think it was both around 40,000. Again, please remove a zero off that. 4,000. I think both were around 4,000. I'll just quickly give a double check. But yeah, so as I said, in terms of Brisbane, I'm not even sure. I think Gippsland is a bit out of the way too. So
Gippsland is very much out east.
Yeah, so I was actually pretty impressed how much rock that crowd this week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've got the official things here. And in fact, they beat them out. 4,500 for Brisbane over Adelaide, and North Melbourne over Port Adelaide was 4,300 and 87. So yeah,
pretty solid, consistent crowds.
Yeah, exactly. As I said, I think they want a bit more. In terms of once the grand final actually comes around, the average attendance will be similar to last year, which, as I said, coming into paid tickets, it's not bad signs. I wouldn't say it's fantastic, but they've done a lot of fixture mucking around. So hopefully, if they can finish off this final series good, next year has a bit of restored fixtures. There won't be as many midweek games. There won't be as many rushed fixtures. So hopefully that might result in a bit of an increase, because, as I said, the product has been fairly reasonable this year. So hopefully, fingers crossed, they'll finish the season with a bang and go into next year striding.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that we've covered the AFLW a little bit more on the podcast, I'm certainly a lot more interested in watching games for myself and learning a bit more about this side of the code. So I'm very much looking forward to next season, seeing what Richmond and the Richmond girls do. I already know that the full men's side is back in training, as per most AFL teams, I believe. So we're already getting excited to see what teams can cook up in the off season over the summer. But until then, we will wrap it up for this week, because I believe that is all we need to cover. So,
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Thank you all so much for coming to hang out, coming to chill, coming to listen to us, and just hear us talk about our mustaches at the start. There will be an episode next week. We'll talk about the AFLW Grand Finals, the AFLW Awards nights, as well as any other little tidbits of information coming out about the men's league. specifically the SSP or anything else. It's worth noting. So it might be a shorter episode, which is perfectly okay. Follow us on our socials, especially me. I'm still very active for the rest of this month. I'm posting daily on my Instagram, specifically my stories. I'm streaming at least 3-4 times a week on my Twitch currently. This upcoming Saturday is going to be the big one because that's my final day for November. I shaved this off live on stream, as I mentioned at the start. I'm also, I have an idea that I'm cooking up. It's not entirely ready yet, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I might end up scrapping it and just doing something chill. We'll see. But please, if you have any spare money, please send it my way to the QR code or the link down in the description. I'm currently at $435 with 5 days left to go. If we hit 500, I'm going to double it. My bank account might not be very happy with that, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's all for charity. Again, we're raising money for men's mental health awareness, and the money also goes towards other charities and services that Movember supports. So please give if you can. Perfectly okay if you can't. But yes, episode 39 will be next week. We're looking very much forward to it, and hopefully we will see you all then. Goodbye for now.